Happy Labor Day to everybody. Hope it's been a good day. It's still being a good day, and it's going to be the kind of day that's going to get you ready for the balance of this shortened work week. Congratulations, Labor Force. Happy Labor Day. Welcome to the Dialogue. It's Monday night, 8 o'clock. There is a place to be, Facebook and YouTube Live, where Dialogue with Dozell is coming on your airways right now. Listen, tonight we have a show. I'm so excited. We kind of looked and thought about what to do. We want to pull a retro show for a holiday. We said, no, what is a holiday? It's Labor Day. Let's talk about labor. Let's talk about how, if you're still in the labor force, how to make it work for you, how to make it work for you. If you're trying to find your exit plan, we'll talk about some strategies for that. If you are just entering, we've been tonight's guest and the producer and myself, we've been in every stage of it. And we're going to kind of give some pointers and share some stories and enjoy the night. So with me right now is our dear sister, Barbara Bethea out of Columbia, South Carolina. Ms. Barbara, how are you doing today?
Hey, everybody. Good evening and happy Labor Day.
Happy Labor
I'm
Day.
doing fantastic. I really appreciate you having me on and the opportunity to address your guests and audience this evening. Really grateful to be here. So I hope that something we can do can help someone out there.
Well, we're more than grateful that you consented, and I might add, you kind of consented at the 11th hour. Thank you for your flexibility. I just couldn't think of anybody, and I'm been around and know a lot of people, but I just thought that you have a very different sections of the country, differing positions, differing genres of work, and I just thought that you would be ideal tonight to share with our audience. And don't worry about the numbers that we see on the live audience. Some are over on YouTube because they can see it on TV, and others will see it throughout the week. And we might even have to boost it. We'll just see what the demand for, because it's a very worthwhile cause. We're going to ask you, Ms. Barb, please just give us a snapshot of your resume, just a brief snapshot, and we're going to kind of take a bit of each one and talk about it.
Yeah, I understand. We can take a deeper dive later, but just an overview of things that I've done, and I was discussing it with the producer because I've had reinvented myself several times. I started off years ago as a clerical worker, administrative, and got into the technical broadcasting area where I was a camera operator, master control operator, video switcher. I became a producer. I worked in a union as part of the labor force, IBEW in Boston. And then I became non-union. I worked as a producer director. Part of my job as a producer director was to produce Boston Celtics games. The station I worked at produced 48 away games a year. So that was exciting. I did that before I became a manager. I became a production and community affairs manager. I actually hosted a community affairs show. From that point, I moved from Boston to South Carolina, and I worked at a TV station here in South Carolina, a Fox affiliate, where I was the news and promotions manager. So I did that. I sold real estate while I was working as in television. I, had my license in Boston. I moved to South Carolina, and I went and took the tests and became a South Carolina realtor. So I was selling real estate. And at the conclusion of that job, as we transitioned out of that, I moved into real estate full time. And of course, that was in 08 and 09. And at that time, real estate took a terrible nosedive because of some things that were going on in the industry. So it wasn't the right time for that venture. And I looked around and discovered that the automobile dealer near me, Mercedes and Volvo dealer, was hiring. I went in and talked to them about that, of course, with no experience. I had some promotion experience. I understand networking with people. So they gave me an opportunity to work with them. And I've been there for 13 years. So after 37 years in television and real estate, I moved over to auto sales. And I'm enjoying it thoroughly. I really enjoy it. So, I don't have any bad news for anything that has happened to me.
Well, you are speaking to Your host is one of your very happy customers.
Oh,
It couldn't have worked out better. I went online, uh, built the car through Mercedes, and it pointed. There were several, but it pointed to you. Pointed to the car that I really wanted. Pointed to you, and from the very beginning of our, well, no haggling, but our negotiations or our conversations, it was just a pleasurable experience. So
my
much.
pleasure. My
Oh,
absolute pleasure. And knowing what your other job is, I want to give praise to God for everything that we do, because in every job that I've done, I look to Him for guidance. And I look to see how He can use me. And I feel that working with you was certainly something that He was guiding us on. And in everything I've ever done, He's been first. And
well,
so I like to keep him right there. He'll get us through it. We had some hurdles, and it all worked out wonderfully because he was
yes.
in charge, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. That's why I really wish KV was here tonight, because he kind of the last minute I was looking for someone to help me to make the trip to pick the car up from Fort Lauderdale to Columbia, South Carolina, and he's quite a driver. So he had just purchased a new vehicle with the driver assist package, and I
I'm
said,
impressed.
yeah, yeah, I will watch him and see how, kind of get an idea how that whole piece works, even though Mercedes is somewhat different, and just get the concept down. And lo and behold, I got to see him drive the speed limit a little closer now. So it was it was something. Miss Barbara, you what was your preparation for your the electronical piece that got you really, I guess, into TV? What was some of your preparation, or like, as you say, you saw when you moved to Columbia that the dealership was hiring, and you just went in, and it just by God's grace worked it together. But how did you get started that got you into the TV industry?
Ah, that's amazing. That's an amazing story. So very glad that you asked that, because God's grace. I was, as I said, I didn't even mention the fact that I was in a clerical pool at an insurance company. I worked for the Boston Passport Agency as a second job. And coming out of that administrative background, I was able to get a job as a clerical person at a TV station, a local TV station.
Wow.
And as I transitioned into that station, I worked a couple of years, and there were some very generous managers there who thought that I had some potential. So, they said, "What would you like to do?" And they said, "We have jobs that pay more. We'd like you to take one." And one of those jobs was a technical job. My preparation for that job, they did ask me if I wanted it, running cameras, running audio, being the master control operator. And all I had to do at that time was to get a first class radio telephone operator's license. Back in the day, to be a technician, you needed that. And so the company paid for me to go to school in Sarasota, Florida, to a radio electronics school. And I was there for 6 weeks, and I took a crash course in bulb theory and electronics. And I came out of that with a first class radio telephone operator's license issued by the Federal Communications Commission, and was able to put that on the wall and qualify for that position. And that's how I got my start in television behind the scenes. I did a lot of administrative work for a few years, and then I was able to transition into the technical area. And it was a lot of fun. I love running the cameras. I love running audio, and I love doing master control and putting the commercials and all the programming that you see. I did that for years before I switched to the production side and became a camera operator, audio, and a technical TV position where you do the actual switching to the cameras during the live newscast. So I did all of that. It was so fascinating. And coming off the farm, you didn't mention my background, because I grew up in South Carolina on a farm.
Oh,
And these are
okay.
things that I had no idea that existed. I had no idea these types of positions existed. Where I grew up, people who went to college became teachers or preachers or, I had no desire to be either one of those things. And so when I went to Boston to live with my parents, I was looking for my vocation and praying that something would come along. And I have a fascinating story that I think is a story full of blessings. I've been pushed in various directions that I've been able to excel. And they're unrelated. I mean, television is
Uh,
unrelated to real estate, which is unrelated to cars. And,
yeah.
I just think that everybody inside of you is a winner. And I feel like I want to encourage people to do things that they don't have experience doing because that's what I've done. That's
I
what's
love
happened. I
that.
had no experience at those things, but it's stepping out on faith and allowing yourself to learn new things because you're not always welcomed into those
Mm.
new positions. At the time that I became a technical employee at the TV station and joined the union, I was one of two women, um, one black and one Caucasian. The black was me, obviously. And this was a field that was totally male dominated. I've worked in
Uh,
male dominated fields most of my life. And that was a male dominated field. So they didn't welcome new people coming into this high paying job without experience. So they didn't
wow.
feel it was their job to train me, even though the company hired me. So, it was my job to learn. It wasn't their job to
Mm.
train me. So I was very fond of all the people I work with, and, I learned how to get along with them, and I learned how to gather information without, asking too many questions. But it's part of what we do when we're thrust in a position and we want to be blessed and we pray and we just get out there and put your foot in, get your feet wet,
Amen.
and learn. I think you've probably heard a lot of stories like mine.
Yeah, Miss Barb, I'm fascinated. Now I know what drove you to how you got to Boston, and
Yeah.
I was not going to ask, but I know how you got there. Um, Before I ask you another career path type question, how did you like living in the Northeast? Because that is my vacation harvest. I can do that once a year, either in the spring or the fall.
Well, America, I'm always saying to people, I don't know if I want to go to other countries on vacation because I feel that America has so much to offer. I love Florida. I've been to Jamaica and different places, but I feel like Florida is just as gorgeous as all those islands. California, I've never been, but I've seen videos. And I think this is a fascinating country despite some of the struggles that we endure here. But
Yes,
and you mentioned the Northeast. The Northeast is certainly uh, it's a climate change, but
yeah,
it is gorgeous. It is filled with things to see. When I got there, I've seen things from Paul Revere's house to the statue for the African American soldiers, the 54th Regiment, the Boston Common, the
in
Bunker
Boston.
Hill Monument, the Old North
Yes,
Church. These are all
yes,
things that we've seen in history. And I do want to mention the 54th Regiment again because they were men of color. And so a
yes,
lot of times our history is overlooked, but they have that there. And me and my family have taken pictures there. But there are things you see in history books like the Bunker Hill Monument. They also have the JFK Library. There's so much to see. But I'm going to, just because you want to go there, I'm going to tell you, make sure you go there in the spring or the fall because I'm not a fan of snow. I,
well, well, let me tell you. Let me tell you. For me, just a little sprinkle
yeah,
or a tad of cool weather,
it's
I can live
beautiful.
with it. Now,
Oh my gosh, it's so romantic.
my roommate, that's a tough sell to her. Uh, the the producer's
Mother.
mother, we just celebrated 43 years together. Uh,
Oh, congratulations. That is fantastic.
Thank you, thank you. I'm still working on that piece. Our vacational choice we've done. I've been blessed to see all 50 states.
Wow.
California is Florida only with cliffs, mountains. You can't negate its beauty, but it's certainly it's not. it's not so far superior to Florida's beauty. Hawaii,
Okay.
same thing. You got the cliffs and the rolling hills and so forth. But I'm still fascinated with the Northeast. We just did Martha's Vineyard
Yes.
back in April.
Yeah.
Now, in 2017, we stayed on the island of Hull, and
Yes. Oh.
and
Mhm.
I thought that actually the GPS was taking us anywhere but a real destination, and then all of a sudden we end up at this nice resort. That, by the way, where the NFL owners had just had one of their meetings, so I knew it
Uh,
was legitimate. Then we did the ferry into Boston, and some of those sites that you're speaking of, we got a chance to see into the 53 Regiment. What a sight! The old Boston Tea Party
yes.
monument, all of that. The Cheers bar. I never looked at Cheers, but it was fascinating to see the whole, the place, I guess, that inspired the show and everything. And it was just awesome. And
It
so
is.
this year was strictly Martha's Vineyard, which was pretty much shut down, but it gave us another perspective of it. We got a chance to see areas that probably would have been a little crowded, and it was, oh my gosh, it was cold, but it was all right with me. It was all right with me. We moved here from near Chicago, so it was
Oh my goodness. Yes.
we had done it. But like I say, the girl who sleeps on the other side of the bed, she could avoid that any time of the day. But it was awesome. So
I
it
think.
back.
Go ahead. I
I'm
was just
sorry.
going to say that Boston and Chicago have a lot in common.
Yeah. We can talk about some of the social political aspects of the commonality, but
Well,
um,
Red Sox, White Sox. You know what
Red
I'm
Sox,
saying?
White Sox. Yes. Because you guys got your big rivalry with the Yankees. That's the big
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Boston
Red Sox,
rivalry.
Yankees. Yeah.
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 Um, while doing the work behind the cameras and doing the producing, what percentage of your work was live as opposed to producing uh, material, commercials, etc.?
It, I worked at an independent station, so a lot of what we did was recorded. But we did have public affairs programs. We had Ronald Reagan come in. We had some
Wow.
significant, and he was president at the time. He came in for an interview. We did a Hispanic program called De Toto and Polka, and we did a program called Mosaic, which was geared toward the African American audience. These were all tape programs. At the time that I took over as production manager and the producer director, we had 5 nights of live news at 10 o'clock. We said at 10 it's news, at 11 is history.
Oh
So
wow, I like that.
we had a 10 o'clock news program. And so we were the first 10 o'clock news program in the Boston market. And so it went from 30 minutes to an hour-long production, and it was very well done. So we really, as you say now, we did commercial production as well. We did have clients who didn't have commercials. We did those. We had writers and producers and editors who did that. We were an independent station, so we had movies and we had people who edited movies, classic movies. We had several hours of movies every weekend that scored very high in the television ratings. So, I pretty much learned a lot at that station. I really am appreciative of the opportunity because that opened up doors for me that wouldn't have opened because if I had been at a larger station, I wouldn't have learned some of the things I was able to be hands-on with.
Wow,
Um,
wow, wow.
so, if you're hands-on and you kind of start at the beginning and work your way up, you learn everything there is to know. So that opened up some doors for me in management and certainly in transferring to South Carolina with another station. I would have never been able to do the things that I did had I not worked at that station.
Now, did you all do series TV like Gomer Pyle, the retro, the oldest Happy Days, and did you all have a package to do one of those shows?
We did. We actually had happy days. We had cartoons. We had
Wow.
a lot of cartoons because that was things kids come home after school, and at that time there was not video games and etc. So people turned on the TV and watched cartoons, Fred Flintstone,
Yeah,
things like that. We had
yeah.
daytime was full of shows like Maury Povich, and then in the afternoon there were things like the Flintstones and other cartoon programs for children, leading into the early evening hours where we had shows like Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley. Yeah, so we ran some of those programs that were off network, and then we had an 8 o'clock movie and the 10 o'clock news.
So, Ms. Barb, and I'm a big fan of. I'm a big news hawk, so I do the two, uh, the two national news broadcast networks. Not the one with start with X with F. Uh, no, don't do the
And
F
then
word.
Gen X.
Yeah, I don't do that with too much. But locally, believe it or not, local TV, local news looks like that they need to do the gory stuff, so they do the hideous murders, and I
Yeah.
could kind of do without that. I read it where I can do it at my own pace on the paper. But is there not now a new trend, say in the last 5 or 10 years, that the networks bought up the independent stations and used them as a secondary station for them? Or could you explain to us? And I wasn't planning on going into this, but I appreciate having someone who knows about this.
You're absolutely. I've seen some examples of that. And there's actually that's what happened to the station I worked at in Boston. It was acquired by a network station, um, and then they put their anchors on and started doing their news. But so much of the news is so repetitive. I think what you're saying is you see the same things on all the local channels, and
Yeah.
they haven't found a way to differentiate their products. So we end up, I know me personally, I watch national news uh, because I want to know what is on the greater scope. I mean, I love community news, but like you say, some of it, you just get tired of hearing the same repetitive stories.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, television back in the day was, I think, a lot more honest and true. I think there were less opinions
Okay.
being put out there. I think sometimes we get too many opinions based on my experience. And what I tried to do when I was in the industry was to present the facts. We try to present the facts and allow people to make their own decisions. And now we're seeing a lot of biases, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's not healthy.
Yeah,
That's just not healthy.
it's not. I mean, actually, in all fairness, if we were to sit here and label the three national networks, we
Yeah.
say that one is left or probably
Yes.
woke, one's more centrist, and the other is far right. Would
Right.
that be a pretty fair assessment of the three?
Yeah,
The
I
si-
think I think and including that fourth one. Yeah, yeah. I think some strive to be unbiased. I can see that they attempt it, but from time to time it kind of seeps through. Opinions seep through based on your choice of words, and semantics means a lot. Which words did you use when you covered that story? And I'm not sure that our audience is media savvy and that they realize that by someone saying a particular word, it can slant your opinion. So that's important. That's important when you're listening to news is to not be biased because of their choice of language.
Yeah, yeah, I'm always amazed with the national, and we could talk this stuff all night long because
Absolutely.
you talked about that third class license that you went to get and came up with a higher
First
one.
place.
Your first, yeah, first. I
First you get
was
third, and then you get second, then you get first.
so back in the day of local radio. That's all I ever wanted to do and be, and of course, my mom wanted anything but that for me. She thought it was not a real aspiration. And then God stepped in and kind of settled it with the call in the ministry. It kind of took me on a different trajectory. Before we go to break, and there was some things we got to get to the Union. We want to talk about the Celtics. But before we go, I want to answer Miss Linda Scott. She's like our sister producer's aunt. She spoke to you. Hello, Miss Barbara. And you got a question. What Toya said that actually she stepped out and made this a career change to start doing live stream producing during the pandemic, and it was a career change for her, and it was a drastic change, and it was scary. and she wants to know, since you have made several changes, how do you overcome that fear?
Yeah, I think fear is real. When there's a change in your life, the first thing you have to realize is change is the only thing in life that is consistent. Change.
Yes.
As we go through life, we're going to change from different things. We are transformative for our entire lifetime. So, you begin as single, you date, you might become married, you get a job, you got to look at it that way. Jobs are the same way, it's just a life change. And I think when you pray on it, I've had some things happen to me. I've been laid off. I haven't, always made it my choice to move to a new level. And so when that happens, I accept it as the will of God, and that I need to be
Amen.
someplace else. Because if
Yeah.
I'm doing my best, and I think most of us are, we're doing our best when these things
Yes.
happen. And you say, well, why is this
Yes.
happening to me? I'm not the
Yes.
worst employee. I'm
Yes.
pretty good if I do say so myself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when that happens, I think we have to realize that there is greater direction in our life. Our steps are being ordered, and we
Yes.
have to listen to that. It's very difficult. It's hard not to take it personally, but realizing that we're moving on to something better. And I think that's the thing that most people, find hard. If you don't have a belief system, I think it's particularly difficult because it's difficult when you do have a belief system. It's very difficult because sometimes we like our job. So it's like somebody took something from us. And so you're like, why did you take my pacifier? I was so happy coming here every day. But I think TD Jake says something that I say to my family all the time when they're going through change, and it's, can you stand to be blessed? Okay, that's a question we have to ask ourselves. Can you stand to be blessed? Can you pray for wisdom and knowledge? Because when we're moving somewhere else, we don't know where it is, but do we have faith and do we have trust? We have to go ahead and look for other things. And that's what I've done. Each time when I moved to South Carolina, my grandfather was sick and I had to move. So I had to find some way to make a living here. So I started looking for jobs. And I found a job and I said, God found me a job at a TV station here. And, I took, just so I can identify with everybody, I took half of what I was making in Boston to
Wow.
move to Columbia, South Carolina. I had a pay cut of half,
Wow.
and I had a 5-year-old daughter. And I moved here making half of what I was making. I sold my house there, bought a house here. But, God was blessing me and my grandfather. I say he was blessing him. You never feel like you deserve it. But I got
Mm.
here, I made half of what I was making. Inside of 2 years, I was making more than what I made in Boston.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, that's a
Wow.
testimony. So,
Yes, it is.
we have got to listen. We got to listen. We can't say that God doesn't hear us. We got to listen and just trust in him because he will take us where we need to be. And I think that if you prepare yourself with education and you do your homework about the jobs you're moving into and you're excited about making a change, it can't go wrong.
Ms. Bob, you blessed us with unexpected words of wisdom. Now, I too have been where you are, where you have been, and you really spoke. Actually, you just kind of accentuated something that this one guy preached yesterday, where where he was preaching the words of the Apostle Paul, who talked about the eyesight and the seen is inferior to the unseen, which is superior. And we talked about eyesight being temporal, but the unseen, which is vision, is futuristic. And with
Right.
vision, and with God as the element on the inside that works all, brings it all together, the
Yes.
vision is futuristic, and it just does not yet appear what we shall be, what we shall do, what shall happen for us. And you're testifying to that. And Thank God. Listen, we're going to commercial break. We're going to come back and talk about some of the things. You're with Miss Barbara Bethea. She is putting down not only talking about Labor Day stuff, but just wisdom for life and just exciting me beyond measure. 18 hot holes out there today, and I needed this reviving tonight, and you're doing that. Thank you, Miss Barbara. We're going to hear a word from the producers. Bless you. Resume. Let's go gigaworld.com, go gigaworld.com. Any and all of your production needs, they got them. Listen, tonight is a shout out for Labor Day. Tonight is a shout out. On this Labor Day, the dialogue takes time to honor and salute each of you who get up early in the morning before dawn. You catch an early bus. Some of you ride an early train in different areas. You drive home in rush hour traffic. Often you missed out on your children's afternoon activities because you're working. Or men and women, you are having to deal with an overnight shift that affects your body's clock, that you don't know when the sun is up or the sun is down. Or worse yet, you have to work that mandated overtime shift after you are already tired from having worked your own shift. Shout out to you. Shout out to everyone who's started out with the lemonade stand, but you parlayed those entrepreneurial skills into today. You have a successful business of your own, and you're hiring others and you're mentoring young people. Shout out to you. Shout out to you work with your hands. You wear the heavy gloves. Your bodies are often racked with arthritis, and you find it hard to get around, and it brings on other physical problems, but you make it. Shout out to you. Shout out to you who work with your heads. Often your mind goes into overload just to make things happen, to make projects work, and you deal with blurred vision. You put up with headaches. You do whatever you have to do to get through an 8-hour shift. Shout out to you. Shout out to you who work with your hearts. You are blessed to be able to combine the efforts of your careers and your calling. They work together, but often they bring on a different set of circumstances. Sometimes you're unable to unblur the lines, but shout out to you for making it happen. Shout out to you who work with your hands, your heads, and your hearts. You bring comfort to others. You deal with the infirm. You bring comfort and care for those who are injured, for those who are in other various forms of pains, while often you're not able to go home and deal with your own pains, your own injuries, your own infirmities, your own stress. And listen, during this pandemic, we realize it's a different season and you're having to deal with your own situations, but we shout you out because you make it happen and you answer the bell the next work shift. Shout out to you. Shout out to you who persist through your physical impediments. It takes more effort for you to get to work than it does most of us. It takes effort for you to set up your workstation. But because of your dogged tenacity and your inward spirit that I'm going to make it happen, you do it because of that can-do mentality. Shout out to you. Or your retirees, we haven't forgotten about you. We haven't forgotten about you at all. You answered the call for the greater part of your lifetime. And now you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Shout out to all of you. Shout out to you who raised your children off of your labor, who've gotten them through school, who some are into postgraduate degrees. Some you've mentored into their own careers. You've secured a happy home. Shout out to you. Shout out to you who contributes daily to our nation's economy. In spite of what they say, it's still one of the best economies on all the earth. Shout out to you for helping to make our GNP one of the greatest grand national products in today's world. Shout out to you. Shout out to everyone who has worked, who is working, and who is about to start working. Tonight, the dialogue sends a great shout out to each one of you. Shout out. Hey, just a tribute. There was a retro tribute, but a tribute to all who have worked and are working. And listen, Miss Barbara, there is a young lady who is shouting you out and claiming you to be the jewel of the Bethea family. God bless. And there's another young lady, Miss Linda, who kicked in and gave a shout out for retirement. She's excited about the retirement thing. Listen, we're going to ask the producer because we want to get our dear guest all that we can get her, everything that we can get her. We want the producer to just let us know what she's doing now and how she can be contacted now. If you need to leave something here on the screen or she is Dick. Well, I think I know the name of the dealership without reading it. Dick Dyer, Mercedes Benz and Volvo in Columbia, South Carolina. She's a certified sales consultant and she is one of the best. So much so, I probably won't be getting another car for a minute. But when I do, I hope Miss Barbara is still selling them because that's going to be the first place where Kim and I go. He'll take me up there, and that's where we'll do it. But you see her information. We'll show it again before the conclusion of the broadcast. Miss Barb, we want you to talk a little bit about what drew you into the union and what was it like being out of the union, working with people whom you had mentored and maybe likely represented in labor issues.
Yeah, that was a very big conflict actually, because when I joined the union, I had never been in the union before, but it was a requirement to have that position. So learning a lot about what the union stood for, um, and I think there's been a revival right now. I don't know if you saw the stories about Amazon, the young man in New York who got the Amazon employees to vote for the union, because the union was designed because when they were first instituted, the hours for employees were so long they didn't get breaks, and it was really abusive. And so the design for unions is to initiate rules, to work with the employer to make sure that the union workers get a fair working conditions. And I think along the way, somehow, unions were portrayed as bad things. And I think it may have
Mm-hmm.
started when Ronald Reagan was
Mm-hmm.
president. That was a part of it. But, since that time, everybody got a derogatory view of unions. But unions were designed to look out for people. And that's what I learned when I joined the union, paying my dues. And so I learned a lot about what they were doing, trying to protect the jobs for the people who had them. Uh, and sometimes it seems like it's not necessary, but if you don't guard, rights, then they're
Mm-hmm.
taken away. And
That's right.
so the union is the insurance that your rights would be protected. At the time I joined the union, so I believed it. I learned about it, and that's what I do. I never accept anything that I don't understand. I have to know it. So once I understood what the union's goal was, I joined in with it. I became part of the bargaining committee as we bargained with the television station, um, for the rights for raises. We bargained for raises and working conditions and protecting the jobs that we did, not to have people come in and just come in off the street and threaten our jobs. So, that's what I learned about the union and what I think unions are designed for. I'm not saying that it can't be abusive, but
Mm-hmm.
I know employers are not always in favor of it, but I think there's a purpose. There's a
Right,
purpose, and
right,
unions are America. And
right.
so,
I love that.
I think we want to protect our jobs here for the people here in America. And I think that's a good way to do it with unions. And Like anything, I can't think of anything where some part of it can't be rotten. But I'm saying, I believe in unions, and, they got me on the right track. I think that was part of my experience in Boston, was working in the unions. And yes, we had some tough times because we almost went on a strike. We picketed, we did it all to get through to our employer. And we did it all. And eventually we were able to work it out with them. And that's something, I've had people come to me and say, you know what, I can't go on strike because, and this was funny because I'm laughing, but I had just bought a house.
Wow.
I just bought a house, and one of them, well, and I was on the committee, and one of the girls came to me and she says, I can't go on strike because, I need my money. But, I didn't tell her, but I'm like, hey, I just bought a house. If we go on strike, I'm going to lose my house. But,
Yeah.
I'm out here walking because I believe in it.
Yes.
I believe in
Yes.
it. We're picketing these people because they're not being fair to us. So, this is my knowledge of unions. And I think we have to protect the unions in the United States at this time. So, I'm sure,
I,
everybody's
I,
had experiences.
I'm so glad to hear you talk about unions, and it's almost like a needed throwback. Yes, Reagan and his union busting tactics.
I'm
Uh,
afraid. Yeah, that opened the door. He did
yeah,
PATCO, the
yeah, the
airline
airline,
union. So,
yeah,
yeah,
the
yeah.
air traffic
And that kind of
controllers.
opened. Yeah, it opened the door for all kinds of distortion. I call it
Yes,
distortion. And I think,
yes,
people in general, we may have given up thinking and understanding. So, like you mentioned earlier about the media. So you sit on and watch television, and if if you don't hear it on TV, you don't think it's so. You think
yeah,
TV is the end all begin. You got to do it yourself. I had to
right.
learn about
That's right.
unions. I had to
That's right.
understand what they were doing. And
That's
then
right.
I can watch the news with intelligence and say, I don't think that's true what they're saying.
Ms. Barbara, you talk about a union is a community of employees, and it's almost anything that we're a part of is community
Right.
in essence or in concept in one way or another. I live in uh, a homeowners community, um,
Right.
and we're doing we're having some heavy economic challenges now, and it's only when we come together and say we got to bite the bullet, we got to pull each other up, we got to find a way to make it where we can all survive and make this happen. And
That's
that's the
right.
concept of a union. It's almost like I hate to use the connotation with castor oil. For those who remember that dreaded substance, it's a long term, it's a short term trouble for a long term gain. So that's what the union was, and I'm encouraged to see the young man what he's doing with Amazon. Just saw him yesterday on Politics Nation, and
Okay.
so it saw him talking about today they were going to be out in front of Bezos' house and just kind of bring back the spirit of the protests and the union. Ms. Bob, let's move on to wow, this hour goes so fast when we're learning so much. We just want our viewers and those who will be watching us later. It doesn't matter that it's Labor Day. We want you to be inspired by her story, how she has transitioned. You saw Toya ask her some questions about real life emotions like fear, and she talked about how you deal with them with faith. You deal with them with a mindset that God is transitioning me. You got to understand if one door is closed, then he's opening another. When I left to go to seminary, I had the illusions of studying under James Cone at the Union Seminary in New York City. That door was closed, and I received just this viable degree over this school in Louisville, Kentucky. I won't call the name because I'm not a big denominational fan. And from there, it landed us in a church out near Chicago and put me in the land of the real civil rights movement, Operation Push, and being in where I heard Reverend Jeremiah Wright, Reverend Clay Evans, and those dynamic leaders preach once a month or so in person. So you just believe that God's gonna lead you and direct you and have you.
Definitely.
My own
Definitely.
story was I came south. We left our ministry after 9.5 years to join a mega ministry of sorts at the time, and I thought I was riding on into glory, as in i.e. retirement from there. God didn't have it that way. I had a soft landing. My cousins and some other folk had never lived in a community where I had anybody, any family, kind of got us to open our eyes until God says, start this ministry down in Dania, Hollywood area. And that's what we've been doing for the last 16, 17 years. And so when you put your hand in God's hands and step out on faith, like you said, Miss Barbara, he always works it out. It's part of all things working together. Now, I had to retire from the school system. I had to go into the school system to support myself during the young stages of all of that process. I've been a cop, been a few things, done a few things, and every experience has been rich. Some have been experiences, but you learn and you grow from them. You learn and
Absolutely.
you learn and grow. Ms. Barb, your occupation took you to employ with the Boston Celtics. Can you just kind of share that briefly with our audience today, what that was like?
Absolutely. I tell you, here I was, like I said, one of a few females working in the broadcast community at the time in Boston, and we did have Boston Celtics away games at the time that they were champions. Larry Bird, Dennis Johnson, um, we had Kevin McHale, Parrish. We had five of the most awesome players. Boston Celtics had five of the most awesome players in the country at the time, and I was one of the producers. The lead producer was sick. He had trained me. I had gone with him several times to learn this thing. He had me learn how to back him up. And when he was sick, I actually had to produce almost 10 games because it was exciting. I mean, here I was. We were flying to different cities, and I was in the truck. I was the one who was calling the shots and working with getting the game back to Boston. So I was doing away games. I was in Madison Square Garden. I was in
Wow.
Chicago. I was in Atlanta. I was in Washington, D.C. And, it was all done in the space of 2 weeks. We stayed at Embassy Suites, and it was very exciting. These were some really
Oh,
nice
wow.
guys. Being the only girl on the in the in the company, traveling with them and having to work with them. I worked with Bob Cousy,
Oh,
who
wow.
himself was a former player for the
Yeah.
Celtics, and he
Yeah.
was a wonderful announcer. Bob Cousy and Gil Santos, who has since passed away. But
Okay.
they were great. They were the announcers. I was responsible for getting them the cue cards of what they were supposed to say. They called the game, they did the color and play by play, but I had other information I had to feed to them to do live on the air. So, as the producer. So it was very exciting getting the interviews with the players. I had to go into the locker room, and they were very respectful back then. I've heard some things later, but they were very respectful. I never had any trouble. The athletes were very good. So, it was exciting for me, a little country girl doing this. And, I was scared to go in there and scared to deal with them. They were so popular and everything like that. But, I was starstruck, but, I had a job to do. So I did it.
Wow, what a job! I mean, for a lifelong sports fan and NBA enthusiast, uh,
Yes.
that's almost like a dream come true for a guy like me to be that. You guys were during the era when you guys were fighting with the Lakers, and then ultimately the Pistons, who
Yeah.
finally pushed it over. And then when Michael came on, well, he
Yeah.
pushed
Yeah.
everything over.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Patrick Ewing, when we went to the New York,
wow,
Patrick Ewing was playing. It was awesome just to see the players. But
wow.
I did some football at the Patriots. They didn't have the winning team with Brady at that time, but I did some football at the stadium down there in Foxborough as well. We did some things with Dick Stockton and some of the other
Oh,
announcers.
wow.
So that was nice too. Being the backup producer, I got to do a lot of things, and like I said, that I wouldn't have gotten to do had I not just stepped out and done them. When the ball was thrown to me, I had to do it. And so, it's important to keep your ears open, your eyes open, and trust in God. But I'm
Mm,
always trying to learn. That's my thing. I am
it,
always trying to learn. I
that's
watch,
awesome.
I watch, and if I have to do something, I can figure it out because I'm very observant. And I'm engaged. I'm observant and engaged at all times.
Were you a sports fan, or did you become a sports fan
I
after that?
played basketball. I played basketball in
Oh,
high
okay,
school.
okay. Oh, wow. Okay, all right. Okay. Now you got to understand. I sure wish Kim was here. Uh, Ms. Barb and I guess we negotiated and discussed that transaction for the better part of 3 weeks, maybe. I know it
Yes,
stretched you to the limit on that, and we got to the dealership. I couldn't sleep. I think I drove to Jacksonville and was supposed to sleep the night before I couldn't sleep. Kim and I got on the road that morning about 4 o'clock or something like that. And I was so busy just watching him to learn that driver assist package. And we got to the dealership. Uh, you were not there. I wanted to see you because I had an image of you. I won't share it on air, but I had this image of you because I picked up on the accents. You had the southern thing going, but yet you had that little Boston thing going at the same time. And and then as soon as you came in, you took us to the car, so we didn't have time. But it was just awesome. And then we started sharing experiences. Just what a. So I'm using this to segue into what you're doing now. But I want to ask you one real estate question on the way out. Do you think that with the with the raised interest rates and the bubble of a recession, where do you see the housing market going now?
well, it sounds like it's stabilizing right now. It was escalating, and it was escalating pretty quickly. But from what I've seen recently, it seems like it's leveling off.
Okay.
And I think there's been a few reductions in prices, but I think it's leveling off. And nothing happens overnight. It didn't escalate. It didn't fly up to the top overnight. It took a year, since we've been going through the pandemic. And so it's going to take a little time, but I think it's leveling off right now. I think the prices of homes are becoming more accurate. They may not go directly back where they were, but I think it's going to be more achievable for people. And certainly with the rates are trying to hold, and I don't know what they're going to do this month as far as the Fed and the rate. There has been talk of another increase in September. So we'll see what they do, but our hope is beyond what goes on here in the flesh. And so we know, I bought a house in 1982. My interest rate was 18%.
Oh,
So I
wow.
survived it. I
Wow.
survived it. That was in
Wow.
1982. Now, obviously,
Right.
the rates have come down. So rates go
Right.
down, rates go up. Don't jump out the window. You're going to be okay.
Thank you, Ms. Barb.
Okay.
Thank
So,
you. What has happened in the condo industry? That was a great first time home buyer, especially in Florida. That was a great first time home buyer program. A lot of people don't like dealing with HOA fees and stuff like that. Guy like me, I'm glad I don't have to cut grass or pay somebody to cut grass per se or maintain a pool. I've been on that side of it too. Uh, but now it looks like it's becoming, because of the tragedy down in Miami Surfside, that uh, the legislature, led by this governor, has kind of, some people say, sold out to the insurance industry, who held a gun to Floridians, condo owners' heads about this ability to defer um, uh, uh, the monies for, I can't think of the name right now, and I should, but the monies that you have available, readily available without assessment. And so that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at. And so some people have just jumped and panicked while the market is high, but they're having to pay exorbitant rent, and with the hope of transitioning into another cost, so another house once the rates go down. So it's almost like it's a catch 22. So I'm gonna stay pat, like you said. I think that's a wise thing to do.
yeah, you've got to wait until there's a sign. That was a tragic thing, as you say, at Surfside. And, but it doesn't mean that all of them are that way. And so sometimes we overreact. And I think probably the governor and et cetera, everybody's overreacting. I mean, that was very tragic, loss of life, et cetera. But hopefully, everything can settle down.
Yeah,
But
we
I did want to talk a little bit about auto sales because,
that was
I feel like
that,
I was in auto sales for a reason, and certainly working with you was a pleasure. I appreciate all the nice things that you said about me
We
and working
mean
with
it.
me. I feel like again that's an area that I've been um, kind of led into because I left one job and I saw this and I went and applied for it. It's been wonderful. I'm not a true salesperson, but I enjoy helping people.
Yeah,
That's
that's awesome.
my I think that's what I've been led to do all throughout life. And so I enjoy helping people, and auto sales has been just that. And it's been very successful for me. I've been doing it for 13 years. And
Wow.
for each of the 13 years, I've been in the top three at the end of the year.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
I'm not trying to make anybody buy a car, just trying to answer your questions. I'm consultative as far as sales goes. You know that. I answer your questions. I try to help
Absolutely.
you find what you're looking for. And so I think that that has worked out very well for me. And I like, the dealership I work at is a small family owned dealership.
I loved it.
It's been around since 1969. So I've worked in the corporate world a lot, and so this is my first time really working for a place that's small, and it works well. And I love being in Columbia, South Carolina. We've got a wonderful group of people, and a lot of people looking for cars. And we sell cars, as you mentioned, all over the country:
Yes.
Florida, uh, Virginia, New York, Connecticut, Chicago. We have three trucks, and sometimes we bring the car to you, or you can
Oh,
arrange to get
wow.
the car yourself. So
Wow.
it's not just Columbia, but we sell cars all over the place. So it's been a pleasure, and it's been very fulfilling to me to help people. So many people walk away happy. It just makes my soul smile. To
Amen.
make sure
Amen.
that they get what they want and that they're happy with it. So
Eh,
that's what we're doing.
Hey, Ms. Bar, I want to ask you one question about the auto industry before we get out. And thank you for segmenting over into that. It was the reserves was the thing I was thinking about that this legislature has passed that
Okay.
condos we have to fully maintain reserves by the year 2025. We've been able to waive them. I want, but back and thank you for segueing over into the industry. I definitely was going to head that way. I want to ask you the car shortage that came about during the pandemic. Is that working itself out? How is that now? Now we're looking for a car. Wish you had a Lexus dealership. We're looking for another vehicle. So we're
Okay.
enduring
Oh,
some of the same things I did looking for that car.
I I think that it's being alleviated.
Okay.
Yeah, we have started to receive more and more vehicles recently,
Oh,
and
great, great,
really thinking that 2023. I mean, probably as of a month and a half ago, we started getting cars in, and so there was a
fantastic.
shortage. I know a lot of people don't understand it, but pandemic closed down the factories that made the parts that we use
Mm,
to build cars. So I know everybody's heard about chips. Chips are part of
yes.
what made in other countries. Some are made in Ukraine. And so now that they have
Mm,
the war, there's that shortage. So,
wow.
there has been a shortage, but I think that auto makers have come up with some other ideas and ways around it. And so now we're seeing some cars rolling in. I don't know
Awesome.
specifically about Lexus, but we're seeing some Mercedes and Volvos that got a good number on hand at the dealership now. So I'm getting cars in, and a lot of times the reason that people don't recognize it is because people have ordered them. So when they come in, people pick them up. So we don't get a chance to put them on the lot. But we're selling a lot of cars. We truly are. The
Well,
economy is going to be okay. I said, these are things that are out of our control. I don't think anybody should worry too much about it.
that's right. That's right. Teddy Pendergrass said it like this: "Surely things will work out. They do it every time. They do it every
Yeah,
time." So,
that's right. That's
Miss
right. They do.
Miss Barbara, you've not only talked about labor and shared with us, and we appreciate you sharing your personal careers journey. What do you want to say to us in closing tonight? You have just been awesome.
Well, I just am grateful for the opportunity to talk to your audience and to answer questions from Miss Linda and Toya and other people who've written in. Thank you, Sissy, my sister, for making a comment, and other members of my family. But this is a wonderful opportunity and a great show. I love your salute, your shout out. I wanted to say about that. That's very positive. I enjoyed watching your shout out to the laborers here in the country, everybody working. And so, it's wonderful. So I just want to, say I'm grateful for the opportunities that I've had. And I think that everyone has opportunities. Never ever think that you don't. Look at what's in front of you and, pray and go forward and be optimistic. It's never bad. That's the way I look at it. Be optimistic because in change, there's always something good. You just have to see it. If you ever heard the story with Elizabeth Taylor, the movie she was in, and there's a story about so much horse manure being dumped on their lawn, and the little girl comes out and she says, everybody's saying, "Look at all this horse manure," and this little girl says, "I am so excited because there must be a pony." I said, "That's optimism." That
Yeah,
is, I
yeah,
love that story. That's
yes.
optimism. There must be a pony with all that manure. So keep that in mind. There's always a bright side. There's always a rainbow after the rain.
Ms. Barbara Bethea, we thank you so much for being with us tonight. You truly blessed us beyond sharing with us how we can make it carnally in this world. You've given us some gems for just life as a whole, and thank you so much.
All
God's
right, my
richest
pleasure.
blessing
Thank
upon
you.
you and your sales and your customers and your dealership. We just speak the best. We just speak the
Thank you.
best. Please, please, please. Uh, this show is directed primarily to the Florida audience, Duval to Broward, Dade, and all points in between, and nationally. But Columbia, South Carolina is midway, not centrally, but is midway between the north and the south on the coast. What a nice trip it is to fly into there and pick up a car. Go by and see Miss Barbara Bethea. Contact her here. Those may not be the cars that you want, but I guarantee you she knows salespersons and others that
I've got
sells other
them.
vehicles. Yes.
I got other cars.
So please, please see her. Please see her. I'm telling you firsthand, it will be a joy dealing with her, and you don't walk away with a bad feeling about the dealer, the dealership, the experience. It was just a pleasant one for me, and you can see why. This is how I see this tonight's show. I see it that God can give you skills. He can allow your trajectory to be maneuvered from one point to another, one place to another place, from one position to another place, from one position to another position, dealing with different people. But the central ingredient is you. It's the person. It's how you handle wherever you are, whatever you're doing. And tonight we were exposed to a sister who has a, a true spirit of optimism, positivity, forward thinking, futuristic thinking, and a thinking that the best will always from this because God is in control. And as you saw the trajectory of her career that she so graciously shared with us tonight, it has been always been an upward move. And even when it looked like it was less than a lateral move, it was just a second before it was double and she was placed back where she was. It's on the inside of us, people. It's on the inside of us. It's our perspective, how we see things, how we accept it. As we said yesterday, it's not the eyesight, but it's the vision of not where I am now, but where I'm going to get to through and with the grace of God. Ms. Barbara Bethea, thank you again for being with us tonight as this Labor Day episode of Dialogue with Dozell. Listen, in the upcoming week, we're going to look at conspiracy theories. We're going to ask the question again, is America's democracy in peril? We're going to do a sports show. We're going to look at the 12-team format for the new 12-team format of the NCAA College Football Championship. Basketball is NBA is right around the corner. October will be here next month. Are the Warriors favorite? But we're also going to talk about the replacement theory. We've been looking at that and planning and trying to see how we can do that in a positive light. So I think the best thing to do is just face it head on, because it is front and center in our society today. And so you can look to see that show in the next 2 weeks. Dialogue with Dozy. It's nothing without you all here. Went from being one little short, fat, bald-headed man in front of a camera to this marvelous production team. And their commercial is going to take us out tonight, grabbing us and making us what we are. Great guests like our sister tonight, and great co-hosts like my brother KV, my sister Linda Scott, and others who come on and help us along the way. But it would be nothing without you. Dialogue with Dozy. We love you. We'll see you next week. Listen, start looking Facebook, as we'll be putting posters up by Wednesday about next week's show. God bless you. We'll see you. Thank you, Ms. Barr.